Welcome all to the launch of my podcast, Who Wants to Be Black, where I will be discussing the integrity of the creative industry and what it means to truly diversify and challenge the narrow-minded caricatures. In my debut series, this will be a three-part series which will discuss in detail the positive effects of allowing Black creatives to have more autonomy and maintain control over the work that they are a part of, but also how they can challenge stereotypes and the design and the redesign characteristics of Black people in film, media, even in acting and directing professional, discussing its importance. Today, I'm joined by Nana Hughes, head of scripted comedy at ITV, founder of Indie Saturday Shard, and executive producer of award-winning Black British comedy Chewing Gum, which we'll be discussing today. So, Nana, how are you today?
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you very much for joining me. That intro, by the way, your list of credentials is actually quite impressive. If you don't mind me asking, just to get a bit of knowledge about yourself, um, what does a busy day look like for you?
A busy day for me is usually back-to-back meetings. Producers come in to see me to pitch their shows. Whether they've been developing it with talent or whether they're ideas that they've thought up themselves, that they're trying to get writers attached, they will come in to try and get their show away with ITV. So I try not to, basically I have 3 days in the office. But those days are usually when I do the face-to-face meetings with people. Then I have to read all the submissions that come in to us for scripted comedy, as well as the ones that the producers pitch. I need to anything that we have commissioned. I need to read those scripts. If we've commissioned and greenlit something that's going to series, I'm across all of those scripts. I'm across the castings. I'm across the edit. I'm across the marketing. I'm across the press launches for those things. So it's a mixture of things, but it's always busy.
Wow. Wow. And can you tell us a bit about your own journey getting to where you are now?
I started to work in telly a long time ago. I basically had tried to get a job in telly when I was at school. We'll go back to there. When I was at school, I wanted to work. I knew I wanted to work in telly because I'd been on a day trip to the BBC, and I decided that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. Didn't know what the options were. When you're a kid watching telly, it's like you're going to act or be a presenter because that's all I saw. I didn't know understand the jobs behind the scenes. My careers advisor said it's who you know, not what you know. And I didn't know anyone. My cousin was a presenter on MTV, and she didn't actually help me get a job. So I sort of went, oh well, then that's it. That was my chance. I'm going to have to do something else. So I went and got a job in the city. When all of my friends from school in sixth form were leaving university, I started to get a bit of itchy feet actually, and was like looking around at people that I was working with, and sort of thought, I'm doing the same job as you, and you're in your 40s. I'm in my early 20s. This is it. Like this is it. Wherever I am now, this is all I'm going to be doing, and I'm not sure that that's what I want. So I decided to give myself 12 months to try and find a job in telly. So I had been going out for interviews. I bought Broadcast magazine, was just constantly on the lookout for options and opportunities. I then had an interview for a job for a runner for a post-production company that I didn't get. They then referred me to someone else that was looking for a job as a receptionist. So I went and did that. And 2 weeks into that job, I was like, this isn't going to get me where I want it to. So I handed my notes in there. And because that was sound post on advert. So it was so far away from what I wanted to do. And then luck and timing, someone that I met in my old career in the city, who was one of my clients, she just got into drama school. So she was going off traveling. And then she said, a friend of mine works on Robot Wars. Do you want me to get you a fax number? And I was like, yes, please. So she did. And then I got a job as a runner on that show. And then I made contacts from that show. And then I just kept making contacts in every show that I went on and did. And ultimately, just be good at the job that you paid to do. And then people will ask, you know, there's a lot of people that come in and be like, oh, I'm running, but I don't want to run. I want to do that. But people just want to know that you do the job that you're employed to do. So yeah, I did that. And then I got a job on Graham Norton as a runner. And then I worked my way up there to researcher. And then I did some comedy entertainment shows, worked on 8 out of 10 Cats. And then from 8 out of 10 Cats, I went to work at Channel 4 as an assistant commissioning editor. So basically learning the ropes of what I'm doing now, that I was doing that at Channel 4 for the comedy and entertainment department. So I was across both scripted and non-scripted, and that's when I decided that I really wanted to work in scripted, so in order to try and get myself a job in scripted. And then I did that. And then I've just worked in various different scripted departments and companies, developing shows, working with talent, making pilots. That's what I've done.
Right. So, Dana, what sort of things would you expect to find when it comes to Black British shows written by other Black British people?
When you say what would I expect to find in terms of the quality, the difference to others?
Yeah.
Okay.
The quality, in terms of like special features that you usually find when
Things
you're
that are written
when you're yeah.
by Black creatives tend to have a much more authentic tone in terms of when they are speaking about the
Mm,
community and a point of view on that life, right? There's a different lens that they see things through. It's
mm,
less sneery about other people. I mean, comedy can always be quite, or has historically been quite sneery about other groups who are othered in order for people to make jokes
mm,
out of things. That's where people drove those comedy conflicts came from, you know, punching down. Over the years, those things have changed, and actually, people don't try and punch down. And I think that most of the most successful shows that we've had in the UK don't actually punch down. They are usually from working classes, sort of aspiring to be somewhere else or just living their lives. Whereas the nuances that you get with Black creatives over the language that's used, um, the topics that we speak about, the areas and the places we go to, you know, like in a lot of other sitcoms, there will be a local pub, you know, in a Black show, there didn't used to be a local pub. That's not something that would be the
mm.
thing, you know, the barber shop was the place where people would hang out. It wouldn't be in the pub. So it's just looking at the different nuances and colloquialisms of the community. And that's usually, you can see that on the page and you can tell.
And so putting that into perspective, Chewing Gum offers a fresh perspective on like Black life. It challenges many of the stereotypes. So, for example, the overly religious parents and the innocent Black girl who's obviously been raised in a strict household, and thus has it becomes quite chaotic for her to navigate within the modern world. Outside of religion and tradition, religious culture as well. So how do you think the show itself, Chewing Gum, navigated the line between humor and like addressing the social issues, or being authentic?
I
And
think
why is
Chewing
that
Gum in
balance so important?
particular was something that hadn't been seen before. I think that a lot of creatives want to create a Black show, but I think Michaela's tone and voice in particular, um, you know, she's very unique. She's a once in a lifetime, once in a generation talent, is what I would say. And she applying that conflict was a thing, and those pushing on those boundaries is something that she likes to do. You know, that's anything that just sits easy. That's not been something she wants to do. And I think from our communities, quite often people are quite nervous about pushing on those boundaries.
My mum was going to name me Alyssa, which means sweet angel in Indian. But when I came out, she looked at me and she called me Tracy. Tracy.
You know, I think I can probably say, 85% of us that were brought up in a very strict environment will continue that, and will live and live our lives in that way. But quite often, it's people that will break the rules and push the boundaries. I think Michaela's fearfulness of actually going, no, I am going to push against this. I am going to make a joke out of this. And that's okay, rather than feeling very awkward and worried about offending anybody. She was like, I'm literally going to go, like, if this is the safe space, I'm going to go here. And that's always what she wanted to do. And I think that it made a huge difference, because it made it exciting and made it very, very different to other shows that you've seen different.
In order to, I think maybe not just because it was highlighting the comedic aspect of things, but also just the way I saw it was her placing a trope or a stereotype, but also elevating it in a way that makes fun of it. So for example, let's go back to the religious household. Obviously, Tracy, she knows that she makes a lot of childish mistakes, but because she's been kept in the dark for the sake of religion, because she, for the sake of religious culture, because she's been kept in the dark so long, the mistakes she makes on the outside, you wouldn't expect anybody to make them. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that really
is things being surprising
is
and
important.
the
I
conflict
think
coming from somewhere unexpected. So actually having a young woman in her early
yeah,
20s,
very
like they
unhinged,
say,
a lot of
acting
unhinged.
a very small child, a young girl, is quite surprising, because you go, everything about her looks like she's a grown woman, but yet she is making these mistakes time and time again. That will always, that is a comedy trope ultimately, of going,
Yeah,
this is what you expect, but we're going to surprise you by delivering this. And that's what makes you laugh, of this person behaving in a certain way.
Chelsea's better than me. Tell my man shut up. Mention my name in your tweets. Iru boy, shut up. Tracy, yeah?
Yes.
But she doesn't look like she's got cancer.
Why? I don't have cancer.
She can function, but her head is just...
I've just done that with hands, and you're recording a podcast, sorry. So it's like delivering and so you're delivering a character that is surprising, and a character that has got conflict. So actually, as you say, someone that's been kept in the dark, hasn't been mixing with a lot of people on that estate, really and truly knows them to say hello, and goes past them, or sits on the outside, but all of a sudden has found a confidence and a voice to want to adventure outside of the norms. And ultimately, a lot of what Michaela wrote for the TV show was in the stage show, which was a one-woman show. So actually, there's quite a lot of that, of just trying to make it work for telly, and actually trying to build out from this monologue.
Can you think of any other examples of, from your experience, any other examples of shows that sort of present this niche concept of what a black girl is? Like, obviously we've got like the repeated characteristics of black men and black women in most black British shows, like for example Top Boy. Although it is realistic, it does present like a lot of realistic portrayals of lives in rural areas in London. Can you think of any other any other shows that don't that portray a character that you wouldn't expect, let's say, in the UK? In the UK, no?
the show that I can't remember now what it's called, the BBC One cop show, series 2 of series 1 of Go Ed. There's an episode in episode 2 with an Asian family. There is a joke that is played there that I think is quite surprising, and probably not what anyone would have expected. And I think that when I'm working with producers, I do try and get them to go, look, this is what your joke is on the page. Can you not go for the stereotype? Can you try and think of something different? What is surprising? We have seen this before, but it's interesting how like some of the white creatives just don't understand it. They just don't, like, their filters are different, right? So actually they're just
Do you think that they portray the characters in a more tokenist sense rather than a more represented, rather than represented properly?
Dig deep into the character, or often when you get their script and what's on the page, it is written in a very stereotypical way, and I have to point that out and go, like, this joke I don't think should be in here. I just think we should change it. It's not that it's offensive, but I just think if it's something that I feel like we've seen before, like, what's the point? Because they should be surprising, and that's the whole point.
So, to this question, what do you think are some of the key adjectives that are needed in order to transform tokenism into transformation? A proper representation of black characters. Do you think that black creatives necessarily need to be on the table?
Because I know a lot of black writers that have been working on white shows, and therefore if we start saying that you can only do that, you can only write for what you know, is then a problem, because actually then we end up shutting down quite a lot of black writers, not being able to work on other shows, and there's not enough black shows, do you know? So actually, I think, yes, I think it's very hard for other groups to be able to write authentically, but I think what is needed is experience, confidence, and knowledge. And when I say knowledge, I mean an understanding of the market, especially here in the UK. I think that a lot of diverse talent see what gets made because we all grew up on American shows, because we weren't being fed anything here. Yeah, so I think the false sense of security, I think that watching American shows, that we aspire, or I know that I did when I was younger, aspire to, this is what I want to create. This is what I would like, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Cosby Show, and you go, I just want to create a show. Desmond's was the only thing we had here for a very long time. So actually being able to create something that made a difference to the community that I grew up in is what I wanted to do. But what I realized from working on the other side, and especially working at a channel, is that ultimately our responsibility working for the channel is to commission shows for the UK. And actually, if you're commissioning a show for the UK, you really need to understand the audience. We can't narrow the field by saying we're just making for this community, because actually there's not enough of this community to just make a show. Like Chewing Gum did brilliantly for Channel 4, but numbers-wise, it's a critical thing rather than an audience thing. And that can work for Channel 4 and the BBC because they get government money. So it's not a commercial entity. But in America, you can make a show for a black audience and there will be enough people that can come to the show. In the UK, if you make a show for the black audience, those numbers will not be enough to sustain, to make it a commercial success. And I think that's why I think that our creatives need to have a bit of knowledge. In the past, creators have often been shielded from any of that kind of level of in-depth conversation. But I think that the good bit, and Michaela equally was interested in that. She wasn't interested in making a very small show. She wanted to make a show that would appeal to many people. And I think even by the characters that she created and the population of the estate being so diverse, meant that lots of people had a way into the show.
That's as a final question, before we go. What do you think are some of the things that, some of the other things, like, can you name some of the things that Michaela did well in that that you think is missing in some of the more recent shows? Because as we know, not every black show is being given the green light. And what are some of the things that, like, taking a look at what are the things that Michaela did in Chewing Gum, like, what do you think we could also apply to the black shows that are created today, or the ones that should be created? Do you think, or some things that are missing that Chewing Gum had?
I think the fearlessness is definitely the top thing. It's pushing the boundaries and being surprising. I think Michaela, as a writer performer, I think there's two different areas here. So you've got the writer performer. She put a play on, so therefore people could see her. People were talking about her. People understood the character that she was. She's mesmerizing as a performer, right? So people fell in love with that. So that development came out of somewhere. And that's not to say that everybody has to go and put a play on and do that. But as a writer performer, that was useful for her, right? Whereas as a writer, I think it's honing the craft. And I think that Michaela did that on the job. You know, she learned how to write a TV show. She hadn't written a TV show before that. So I think she was, when I say fearless, like the physicality of Tracy as a character and the things that she did, and the boundaries that she pushed, she would often on a take just be like, I'm just going to try something, and she would just go for something crazy. And it's not like Michaela had loads of stand-up experience before that, but she just knew creatively the show that she wanted to create and the person that she wanted to create in Tracy. So I think for creatives going forward, I think understanding a tone of comedy, and I think all kinds of comedy, not just looking at Chewing Gum and Desmond's and going, okay, I'm going to make a show, but understanding what makes people laugh and actually going, I need to make a room full of people. Like, I need to make this tiny island that we live on laugh, not just the tiny room in London, like, laugh. You know, it's like we've got to look at the bigger picture and go, how do we bring everyone in? How do we share our cultural differences with people without alienating them?
Jesus loves you.
Damn. Only Jesus?
I don't know, maybe your friends and family love you
That's
too.
just a joke. I was